I thought that was me. All right, good. All right. I understand why reasonable people steer clear from religion, in particular Christianity. I get it. I absolutely do. The church has done itself no favors publicly for quite a while. We've done, to say something of the scandals of both clergy, lay folks, looking the other way when things have gone wrong. You get a politician this isn't new, that they wrap themselves in the cross and then they say something just mean and base and so contradictory to the life of Jesus. You get family members who, it's not that they have a religious belief that's offensive or a bit much, but they'll bring it up at the family meal or at the holiday season, and the warm, I'm so glad to see everybody feeling and spirit suddenly gets shaky as they start revving up the conversation. And then, for my context, and I'm guessing for some of you, you know this experience, if you're on any kind of social media, Christians have a tendency of making a post or a comment, God help you if it's slightly inaccurate or slightly opposed to what they happen to believe, the flavor of Christianity. I certainly remember that part of the Gospels where Jesus said, be sure to troll everyone who disagrees with you. I completely understand why reasonable people, when they see me coming in my work uniform with the collar, and they steer clear. In fact, one of my friends, who he says it to say it, because he has experienced, I think, the brunt end of everything that I just laid out, says, there is no hate quite like Christian love. It gets me every time. That's his regular post. And then when you tack on these behaviors of Christians, and I'm not falling into the one true Scotsman fallacy. Well, anybody who did that's not a real Christian. Don't do that. Never do that. Even if the person is terrible, even if what they're doing is awful, don't ever try to dismiss the person's experience by saying that that's not a Christian. That's how it feels. Even if you have those experiences with Christians, with people of faith, when you then tack on some of the stories of our faith that are unbelievable, then it's just so far out of reach. Because then if you start talking about just the life of Jesus, a virgin giving birth to a baby, a man walking on water, resurrection from the dead, healing people, and today's story, the ascension into heaven, well, yeah, they seem less like miracles and more like fairy tales. I'm being harsh, but don't worry, I'm going to turn this around for us. A little bit. I can't erase the damage that people have done. But I will say, when you narrow down the story of the ascension, like this is one of those, you could probably get by with, as a progressive, sometimes we'll make allowances for certain miracles. The story of the feeding of the 5,000, that was the way my wife will preach that sermon every week. Anytime it's up, she will preach it as the real miracles are the moms in the congregation who all brought snacks. Mother's Day. So, it's not just suddenly there's just never-ending bread. It's moms with bags who thought ahead. How do you get there with the ascension? Well, when it comes to any of the miracles for me, When you read a passage of the Bible, any of the passages of the Bible, that just seems really big. Like, we can't live in a universe. I don't live in a universe where people walk on water. I don't live in a universe where people rise from the dead. I don't live in a universe where people ascend to heaven. I've got a friend of mine who's a astrophysicist. He literally tracks stars. So I said to him, Jesus ascends to heaven. He takes off. How far has he made it in 2,000 years? By his calculation, if Jesus moves at the speed of light and didn't have to get to the speed of light, but instantly moves at the speed of light, 2,000 years, he's still not even out of our galaxy. He got out of our solar system in 4 years. But he hasn't reached, like you say, oh, he went to the edge of the universe and he stands on the other side of reality. Nope, he's not there yet. Got quite a while to get there. So the purpose of these stories, if I am holding myself as a Christian, I will still, what I go back to is not that these historically happened, but that I feel like they keep happening when I hold them in one hand and the teachings of Jesus in the other. When I hold that these events happened in a time and a place and in an understanding of the universe. Well, what will happen when I take my place, my understanding of the universe with the teachings of Jesus? So, quick thing about the ascending to heaven, right? And all the art and even kind of how it's phrased, Jesus does a Superman routine where he's floating up and you always wonder if he grabbed his heel, could you have got there? This comes from one of the first steps of religion. Religion as people, we evolved, and this isn't even religion, this is kind of worldview. When we stopped hunting and gathering for our food, when it was called the agricultural revolution, when human beings stopped being completely nomadic, when we became, I can grow my own food, I can domesticate animals, we learned some things. A couple of things we noticed. What separates a living thing from a dead thing? That's the only way we could tell. An animal, the trees, the wind. This is a whole sermon unto itself. When you start hearing about breath, spirit, pneuma, the name of God. Pentecost is next week. Come back for next week. I already got my sermon done for next week. I did it right here in front of you. The other thing we figured out, if my heart stops beating right now and my neurosynapses stop firing, which direction am I headed? I drop to the ground. What do you do with the body? Usually, it didn't take long. We're like, well, we want to respect that body. That body used to have the animating spirit in him, so we don't want the animals to come for him. And if nothing else, he's going to start to smell. So what did they do? Down into the ground. Now, if you have been raised classically Christian, which direction is hell? I'll tell you hell still exists, but I would use this as my motion. Because hell starts right now. I'd also say, which way is heaven? This way. Starts right now, goes for forever. Okay, so if I die, and they put my body in the ground, almost everywhere in the world, if not everywhere, there are some exceptions. Where is the land of the dead? Down. If I dig deep enough, I will find Hades. I will find the ruler of the dead. I will find Charon, the boatman, to ferry my soul to the other side. Now, also, when we became this agricultural folk, if my crops, and the crops that feed my animals are the dependent source of my life force, growing them is everything to me. I live and I die by the growth of these plants. How do I grow these plants? Well, I can tend and care for them as best I can, but there's a lot of things outside of my control. The big yellow thing in the sky, if it burns too brightly, it burns the plants. If it's not bright enough, they wither. What else does it need? water, the stuff that comes from the sky, it comes too much, my plants float away. If it doesn't come at all, they wither. So, if these external forces in control of my life, what direction do they come from? Which direction is heaven in the classic understanding? Up. The gods are up. Everything comes from up. How do you find the gods? What are the first holy places? Mountains. Sinai, Sermon on the Mount. Speak to the Hawaiians, the native Hawaiians, about the holiness of the volcano. You want to speak to a God? Get higher. Get up there. Oh, you can't get up there? You live in a desert. There are no mountains where you come from. And you want to make an offer? You want to communicate with these gods? How do you take what's here and get it up? You set it on fire. And the smoke carries it up. That's where burning and offering came from. If the gods are up. Now this, my friends, is your introduction to what's called the three-tier universe. It was widespread throughout humanity, and in particular, the Hebrew people. The dead were down, we are here, and the gods are up. And so, Jesus, when Jesus came to earth, which direction did he come? From up, down. And at the end of his ministry, where did he go? Up. This fused a lot of understanding of, like, when we shot telescopes into space, that we were going to find Jesus somewhere. When we landed on the moon, is Jesus going to be there? We look at the furthest distance. And so in our modern understanding, we don't live in a three-tiered universe. The Milky Way is hardly at the center of everything. Hardly. We barely register. We're rather small comparatively. So how do we understand an ascension in a three-tier? If the ascension is a three-tiered universe miracle, what does it mean for now? Well, what did it mean then? You see, Jesus, when he was here, you take any of his miracles, compare them to his teachings, as if they were lived parables. Jesus taught the kingdom of God is right here, right now. The kingdom of heaven isn't something you wait for or you climb a mountain to get to. Jesus pointed at temples and said, tear them down. I'll rebuild them. Jesus said, oh, you think that Caesar is so great? Render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. It wasn't about, Jesus' teachings was about the kingdom of heaven. What do we say every week? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. Jesus spoke of whatever the dwelling, the right relationship, the right experience of God would be right here, right now, in this life. If you hear a repetition in my pastoral prayers, I frequently say, let us not wait for heaven, for we see it now. That is the whole. If that's the whole teaching, then you take the virgin birth. The virgin birth, Christmas, the whole story. This is about where was the king of the universe born? A virgin birth in the ancient world was about Caesar, who ruled the world, who brought about a universal peace. In this narrative, where is the king of the universe born? To nobodies in the middle of nowhere. They didn't have a hospital. They had a food trough for animals. That was his first bed. Oh, the instigator of the change that would revolutionize the world, God's chosen in the world. He clearly came to call the brightest, the smartest, the most well-equipped, those of the best pedigree. Who did Jesus call for disciples? Folks who dropped out of school and who couldn't pass a background check. When you're supposed to bring all your offerings to the king. You're here to make sure that, all of your offerings keep showing up in the right amounts so that God will bless you. That's what religion is for, don't you know? Well, when the hungry came to Jesus, did he expect an offering? Or did he feed them? More than enough did he feed them. And so, yes, I believe Jesus ascends to heaven. Not like he does a Superman routine or Neo from the Matrix where he just skyrockets up. It's an artistic rendering. But I believe in an existence of heaven, a place that is bigger than the world I see, that I can tap into, thanks be to God, to change what the evil forces that have plagued my life, for all the ways that I have stepped out of the will of God, for all the times and systems that seem to block the image that God would have for this world. I can pray, I can work, I can believe in that justice is just around the corner. That I can believe that heaven is closer to me than I really believe. I don't have to ascend a mountain to see heaven. And that inspires me to give more because heaven is so close. I can care more for the hurting because heaven is so close. I need not worry that the outcome be perfect for me to give because heaven is so close. And when I lose someone whom I love, I need not worry because heaven is so close. Our lives are not just one stream plucked out of this great narrative story. It is a whole patchwork quilt. And when we stand back and see the beauty of it, when we blend not just one story of an ascension, but with the whole of the gospel, with their understanding, with ours, then I can face my own mortality. That when my time is up, I can face it with courage because heaven is closer than I can see. It's right here. And that's the courage Jesus gives the disciples. What would happen if Jesus' followers didn't use Bible passages as bumper stickers, but rather the fuel that inspires them to love more? To help build heaven here now, so that heaven didn't seem like a pipe dream, but something just around the corner. Well, maybe then, my friend and your friends, the people that you can name in your heart, would say that there is no love quite like Christian love. I'm looking to build that world here. I believe that is the mission God put me on, put us on, put this and his whole church to. May you be faithful to that mission. Amen.